evening, wherever you're watching from. My name is Alfred Amuzu, and welcome to the Ghana Agenda. This is episode 103. We've done 101, 102. In both 101 and 102, we discussed Agyapa Royalties Limited. The first episode, which is episode 101, we broke down Agyapa Limited. We talked about the deal itself, whether it's beneficial to Ghanaians who can actually buy into Agyapa, and all the things that happen after. In episode 2, we went into the corruption risk report that was released by the Special Prosecutor. Remember, in episode 1, we talked about the fact that the Special Prosecutor was performing a corruption risk assessment. In episode 2, which was a day after we actually taped episode 1, that report was released and presented to the president. The president was the first to come out on November 2nd to release a statement that says that the deal was going to be sent back to Parliament. So the president said the deal was going to be sent back to Parliament for it to be reconsidered. And we had some advice in episode 2. So if you haven't seen episode 1 and episode 2, I advise you to stop here, go watch episode 1 and episode 2, and come back to episode 3, because we are going to get into the fallout between the presidency and the Office of Special Prosecutor. Stick around, tell a friend to tell a friend. This is the Ghana Agenda, episode 103. Meet me on the other side and let's get into the topics for discussion. But before we get into the episode, I wanted to take this opportunity and this time to bid farewell to our former President Flight Lieutenant John Jerry Rawlings. Rawlings ruled Ghana between 1979 all the way through year 2000. And he was a great leader. Did so many fantastic things, was the one that initiated or ushered the current republic we have, which is the Fourth Republic. And we are grateful for all the things he did for Ghana. Thanks, Mr. Rawlings, and rest well in eternity. Okay, now let's return back to Ghana Agenda. The topic for today is the fallout between the presidency and Mr. Martin Amidu. So, if you recall from the last conversations we've had, or the last episodes, we gave a background for Agyapa. So what Agyapa is an attempt to monetize our gold royalties, or Ghana's gold royalties. This transaction, we said, has been rushed through Parliament and has gotten a presidential approval. That was executive approval from the presidency, which is rarely given. In actual fact, the way approval is given for bills to be discussed in Parliament and be made into law is that it goes through the cabinet and gets a cabinet approval, or the minister that has been impacted provides a memorandum to cabinet and cabinet to approve it. But under these circumstances, or under this Agyapa deal, it was a presidential approval, or what we call an executive approval, that was issued. These are some of the things that, in fact, the corruption assessment revealed, and were things that Martin Amidu, the Special Prosecutor, wanted to further investigate, and also further investigates persons who were engaged in this deal. Persons like the Minister of Finance and the Deputy Minister of Finance and all these other advisors who were brought on to advise the deal. So today, what we're going to do is look at why Amidu resigned and the situations and circumstances leading to his resignation. Amidu wrote a letter, a 13-page letter to the president, which is completely separate from the report itself. Remember, the report was a 64-page report, but he summarized it in 13 pages and submitted to the president. This is in a courtesy to the president, because remember that his corruption assessment was not commissioned by the presidency. This is by law. This assessment really is being done for the Ghanaian public to be aware of what has occurred, because what took place prior to the deal being effectuated was that a lot of information was not out there. People were, throwing all kinds of corruption allegations, and that it would be best for the Special Prosecutor to perform a corruption assessment before the deal becomes effective, or before the deal is consummated. Now, this 13-page letter that was sent to the president was dated October 16. The president received that letter on the 20th of that same month, October. The president informed the chief of staff to reach out to Mr. Amidu and invite Amidu to come for a conversation. He wanted to direct Amidu on how to proceed on the reports. Amidu did not get that call on that 20th. Because it's not a full-blown investigation, you couldn't take that to court. So Amidu needed to do a full investigation in order to take this case or this deal for prosecution. Now, the president is now telling Amidu to stop. So the 21st, that conversation was between Amidu and the chief of staff. And the chief of staff also informed Amidu that the president is on travel to Volta region, that the president will be back on the 23rd, that Amidu should come to meet the president on the 23rd, which is a Friday of October. Amidu showed up on the 23rd, met the president, and conversations ensued. Now, in that conversation, a lot has happened. This is when Amidu, by his letter, told the president that he wanted to resign. So we're going to take a break here. When we come back, we will tell you exactly what happened between the president and Amidu and why Mr. Amidu is resigning. And on top of that, we would also provide or discuss what the presidency's response is to Amidu's letter of resignation and all the allegations that came out of that. Stay tuned. This is the Ghana Agenda. You are watching episode 103. If you haven't already done so, please go back and catch episode 102 and 101. They are all about Agyapa. Of course, we wanted to move away from this topic, but this topic keeps growing and it's taking a life of its own. So we are staying on it until we get to the bottom of it. This is your favorite politician's favorite show. My name is Alfred Amuzu. We'll be right back. In fact, Amidu says the president told him to hold off for a whole week and not do anything, and that the president, will handle it. The president says he will handle it. Whatever that means, we will interrogate that. So Mr. Amidu told the president immediately that he no longer wants to be the OSP or the Special Prosecutor. The reason he says that is because he believed that the president has interfered with his work. That it is not up to the president to tell him how to do his work, that he, Amidu, has done a professional assessment, and that's what it is. Now, the president, for his credit, also wanted the people who were named in Amidu's report to respond to what Amidu has said. That's what the president's position was. He wanted the Minister of Finance and the Deputy Minister of Finance, who were fingered in Amidu's report, to be able to respond to Amidu. Apparently, the response was given to Mr. Amidu, and Amidu refused to take that response. Amidu did not want to take that response because Amidu felt that the president was being a judge in his own cause. The president, in this case, has his relative or his minister that he has appointed in an executive capacity who was fingered in a corruption-related activity. So you would expect that the president will step back and want a full investigation, just like in the case of Agyapa Royalties. When he was caught on tape by Manasseh Azuri for taking bribe and creating a phony company and awarding contracts to himself, the president asked him immediately to proceed on leave. So in this particular instance where the president has been informed through a report by Amidu on corruption risk assessment that the Minister of Finance and the Deputy Minister of Finance altered requirements in a requisition to get a Ghanaian partner, which is a company that he, the Minister of Finance, formed himself, you would expect the president to say, well, Mr. Minister of Finance, can you also step down? Just like Agyapa Royalties did. But that was not the case. What actually ensued was the president asking Mr. Amidu to hold off. Even as of today, the Minister of Finance is still at post. Amidu also said since he became a special prosecutor that he has not been paid. His emolument was not given to him. Neither was it given to his deputy. So Amidu not paid, deputy not paid since 2018. We are also going to look at what the presidency said because again, you have to listen to both sides, right? This is Mr. Amidu's take of that meeting. This is Mr. Amidu's position on why he is resigning. We would be right back and we will talk about what the presidency say in response to what Amidu's perspective or look of things are. Welcome back to the Ghana Agenda. Again, episode 103. Now, we've talked about Amidu's resignation letter and some of the details of that letter. The fact that he was not paid, the fact that the president interfered with his work, the fact that the president asked him to hold off, that he, the president, will handle it, which amounts to interference. Again, you do not expect the presidency of a country as revered as ours to have its, president telling another member of the executive branch or a supposed independent branch of the government to hold off on investigating someone who was a relative to the president or someone who bankrolled the president into presidency. The chief of staff of the president released a letter yesterday, and in that letter, he said that Amidu praised the president for all the support the president gave to Amidu. He went on length to talk about how Amidu was wanted to allocate in a building A, was sent to building B, and all kinds of things. Now, what you would expect is that the presidency will go right to the point and answer to whether the president has interfered with Amidu or not. Now, the presidency said Mr. Amidu, by himself, decided to give immunity to Mahama and not prosecute Mahama on the Airbus. So they kind of bottled a lot of things into this statement that they released yesterday. And I think this statement is a catch-all. It's trying to address so many different things. But what the real issue is whether the president interfered with Mr. Amidu's work or the president hasn't interfered with Amidu's work. Just like all other persons who were fingered in corruption or corruption-related activities whom the president has asked to proceed or leave, we are surprised that the president still did not ask the Minister of Finance to proceed or leave. Here's one of the things that came out of that letter. In 2019, Mr. Amidu asked for $360 million in budget. $188 million was approved for Amidu, and $65 million was released to Mr. Amidu to run his office with. Okay, Amidu, according to the letter released by the presidency, only spent $500,000 or so out of that money. I was leaving about $60.47 million in 2019. This figure, $60.47 million cedis, was rolled over. The normal thing to do was that fund would have been returned back to the consolidated fund. But the Ministry of Finance decided to roll over that $60.47 million back to 2020. Again, in 2020, $39 million was approved and released to Mr. Amidu. If you add the two together, $60 million 0.47 already in the account and 39 more approved. And Amidu, in this time, spent about $3 million out of that. But for whatever reason or whatever calculation, so you would have seen that we would have $99 million in the account at the time in 2020. Amidu spent $3 million out of that. So you should be expecting somewhere in the region of, so 99 minus 3, right? You should be expecting somewhere in the region of 96 million back left in account. But for whatever reason, in this letter, the balance that was disclosed in that account is again 60.47, the same amount that was rolled back in 2019. And if you are mathematically inclined, you will see that this is bad. This is because somebody who's writing this letter was not paying attention. You can't disclose these figures in the letter. And this is what happened when you're in a rush. So I think the presidency is not being clear. In this, do I believe what Mr. Amidu is saying, or do I believe what the presidency is saying? And I'm going to let you make that decision on your own. But here are the facts. Amidu got some money to spend. He didn't spend it all. He left 60.47 in the account. The presidency gave him 39 more million. He spent $3 million. And he's supposed to be left with a balance. That balance is not 60.47. But that's what the president put, the presidency or the chief of staff of the president put in the letter, as you see on our screen. So again, this whole issue of the president trying to sweep this one under the carpet is for you to actually guess yourself. But as far as I'm concerned, it does sound like all the things listed in the president's or the chief of staff's letter. If Amidu, in fact, went through all those buildings and still didn't accept to take a building, if Amidu was release, if all these funds were released to Amidu and Amidu didn't use all these funds, Amidu must be crazy. There's got to be some insane person for him not to be doing all the things that the presidency claimed he has done. And if he is insane, if Amidu is crazy, how did we keep Amidu in that position? Why would we appoint somebody and keep him in a position if he was acting irrationally? All the things disclosed in this letter that we have seen from the chief of staff makes Amidu look very irrational. And so I could tell you this, if somebody is giving you an explanation and they paint another person or a person whom they are having a problem with or conflict with as irrational, it tells you something about the person who's giving you that information. Either they are lying themselves or they are hiding something. I'm not saying the presidency is hiding anything. I'm asking for more information. What information am I asking for? What I'm asking for is, can they show us any evidence of how much was released to Mr. Amidu? Can they show us that, in fact, Amidu only spent the amount they claim in their letter? Because if they said so, then the calculation in their letter is not adding up. And that's the one question we have for the presidency in this episode. Again, if you haven't caught episode 2 or 1, please go back and catch them. And this, as we said, is your favorite politician's favorite show. Thanks for watching. We'll be back next week and provide more information as they come around.
But I can assure you that even if Professor Amidu, my only brother, commits a crime and is prosecutable, he is hearing me. He knows that I will prosecute him. And if I do the same, I know that if he had the opportunity, he will prosecute me. That's how we were trained. So I don't want it to appear as if I'm going to take instructions to save people's relatives, right? There are things which I wouldn't talk about, you see, because the knife must cut both ways. If you want me to cut one way, I will not cut at all, So let's have trust in each other, because I don't think that the president will try to intercede with me simply because somebody is his cousin, or because he's been a trial lawyer. He's been an advocate for several years. And for him to approach me as his former colleague, he will know that morally I may have a different view of him. It's different from somebody who hasn't practiced law in court for some time. I doubt whether it will happen. But should it happen, we shall cross the river when we get there.
All right. So a lot of people say, why did Mr. Amidu resign? Isn't he scared for his life? Or could he be scared for his life? Or is he being threatened? Or what is happening to Mr. Amidu? Now, I don't know exactly what is happening to Mr. Amidu, but I can tell you this. If chances had it, Mr. Amidu probably would have been the president of Ghana, because if you remember, Mr. Amidu was on the ticket of NDC with John Atta Mills 2 times. Then he was changed for Mahama. And then, of course, Atta Mills, we know the story. Atta Mills passed and Mahama became president. So Amidu has been in this game for so long. He's connected. His political affiliates or political friends are in the NDC. He, in fact, if you quite remember, he was the one who blew up or revealed the Woyome and Waterville, judgment debt, to which was a lot which was very problematic for the NDC, and some of that was the reason the NDC actually lost the election. So Amidu has been there. Remember, at the time he was doing that, he was the Attorney General. So Amidu has been in government, has done so much, and to the extent that Amidu will be scared of a position and not be able to perform in that position, I doubt it. But this is what I'll say. Amidu is now working for a government that he did not grow up in. Amidu wasn't an MPP person. Amidu was an NDC person, and we thought because of his background, he would be very independent. That independence, which we are asking for, which the law requires, is not just independent in writing. This is independent that is actually supposed to be practiced. In other words, President, Minister of Finance, nobody in government or even outside of government should have any say on what Amidu does when he's prosecuting or investigating cases that have to do with corruption or corruption-related activities. So I don't know. Is Amidu scared? Is Amidu not scared? This is a really good question. There are rumors out there that Amidu was confining in Rawlings and that Rawlings was intervening between Amidu and the president, and the fact that Rawlings is no more actually caused Amidu to resign. But these are all just rumors. I think we'll shortly hear from Amidu himself, and perhaps he can give us some more clarity on whether maybe he's been scared out or somebody threatened him, because so many different things happen. We know journalists were killed in this country. We know so many things happen to people who dissent or people who disagree with the government. So I do not know whether it is because he's afraid, but if you ask me to give you my own answer, I would say Amidu is not afraid. Amidu is not one of those people who will run from a fight. I think he takes fights on, but where it is time for you to resign or where you think you are not agreeing with somebody, it's only fair that you move on. It's just that the timing is very bad too, especially because December 7th will be going for election, and revealing something or having this kind of conflict with the president can be very costly to the president's party. And that may not place well with some party members. And that could also create an atmosphere that may not favor Amidu as far as his own security is concerned. So there's so much in there, and what I'm not sure of is if there are any threats made to Amidu. And if there's a threat or somebody threatening Amidu's life, then of course on this show we would very much stand against that. We don't think anybody's work should cost their security or their lives. Okay, so another question is, do I think there is a miscommunication between Amidu and the president? And yes, I think there's a miscommunication here, because somebody is thinking that, for instance, the president is thinking that he has authorized Amidu to do a risk assessment, which is not the case. The reason I'm saying that is, if the president had asked or commissioned Amidu to perform an investigation or a risk assessment, then Amidu will owe the president a report. But in this case, Amidu went in and did this on his own based on the LI. Based on the LI or the legislation that he works with. So again, Amidu is not, it's fair to say that there is a miscommunication, because perhaps the presidency was thinking that Amidu should have, submitted a report, and the president will issue a white paper, or perhaps bury the reports. This is which is done, frequently in our government. So yes, definitely there is a miscommunication. I do not think, because somewhere in Amidu's letter, he mentioned that the president labored all these years in thinking that he, Amidu, will operate in this office as his partner. I was surprised by that. In other words, what Amidu is saying, that the president is thinking that he, Amidu, would be his puppy, so that he can always tell him, Amidu, what to do. And that is not the case. That is a good indication of a miscommunication. For whatever reason, Amidu didn't understand perhaps what he thought the president is expecting out of him, and also the president did not really understand what Amidu's report and the processes Amidu was going to use to actually conduct this risk assessment. And since this is the first one in our history, the process he was going to use, how he was going to release it, I didn't think those things were agreed on or trashed out and in fact, I think something like that should actually be legislated, or at least it should be in the LI, so that if Amidu is doing it wrong, we can reference an LI that says it shouldn't be done so and so. What is the way forward, right? We've had all this revelation, all this conflicts between the presidency and the office of the special prosecutor. So what is the go forward for this deal? Though the president has authorized the deal back into parliament for discussion, would this deal still come on, or would it stop? Now, my answer to that is this. I think this deal is dead for now. Maybe it will be revived again. And also in episode 2, we talked about the fact that the law itself, which is the Act 102, which is the MIF Act, the Mineral Income Investment Fund Act, that act should be looked at. And so that a determination is made to see whether the act is properly designed to monetize royalties or our gold royalties. So as far as the deal is concerned, I don't think it's going to proceed, at least for now, especially because we are so close to election. And it may be that the NDC comes into power, or it may be that MPP wins again. And in that case, if MPP were to win again, maybe this might come back again, and there will be further discussions and interrogations and perhaps further risk assessments to determine whether, in fact, doing so or monetizing Agyapa Royalties will be the best thing for us to do with Agyapa Royalties. But as we speak, because of the nature of what happened, because of the characterizations of things that people did, because of the deal transaction advisors who were engaged and the manner in which they were engaged, because of the presidency's own actions or the president's own action in fast-tracking the approval process and trying to rush it through parliament, because of the president's own accession to the law on which the deal is based after the discussion in parliament, all that together, if you consider all that together, I think that this deal is not moving anywhere anytime soon. Yeah, so what we've done so far is try to anticipate some of the questions you may have in your mind and try to answer them. And I don't know how we've done doing so, whether we've answered all your questions, all the things you're thinking about. But if we haven't done so, please go to the bottom of this video and leave a comment. We would be showing this live, we'll be streaming this, and if, during its live shows that you have some questions or you think about other things, right? That we should be talking about, please leave comments in the bottom of the screen and we will respond to you. We love feedback. Feedback is, what propels us, misdirects us or guide us to keep bringing to you this very powerful and important conversations and discussions and presentations each week. We would be back next week, but before we even close this, before we wrap this up, I wanted to say that what should the next step be? As part of my next step discussions, that of course we want those investigations to happen, because it doesn't sound like we know all the things that happen. People are not providing information. Remember in episode 1 we said that this deal has been done in a lot of secrecy, that we want information regardless of which government is in power, whether it's MPP or NDC, that when deals as important as these are engaged in by our government, that's, the simple thing we are asking is that the government provide us with some information so that we, the ordinary citizens, will participate or will not be spectators, but we would also engage in the conversation that moves this country forward. Again, this is the Ghana Agenda. My name is Alfred Amuzu, and you are watching episode 103. If you haven't done so already, please go back and watch the previous episodes. And like I said, leave comments, feedback. We will love it. We'll read it online, live, and we will reach back to you. We would even incorporate your feedback into our program. We are trying to move away from that Japan unless something, substantial happens. Otherwise, we will be discussing other topics like the economy itself, where we are heading, the wrong direction, right direction. We'll be talking about a country as blessed as ours, Ghana. Why is it that our economy is still struggling? It's been struggling for so long. What is the problem? Why can't we fix it? So stay tuned. We'll be back next week. Tell a friend to tell a friend. Alfred Amuzu is on the Ghana Agenda, and this is episode 103. Thanks for watching.